Hello and welcome to Fearless Authenticity with me, Jeanne Sparrow. This is my podcast about finding our success in the gift of who we truly are. These are conversations with people who know and feel what it looks like in the hopes that they will be an inspiration to find ways to use our unique gifts in pursuing our passions, making our dreams come true, and truly engaging with the world in the way that we were created to serve. Now, I do hope this gets deep because that's where we find the good stuff, but don't get it twisted. This is about fun and all the fun of life, because if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing. So let's dare to be brave, be free, be you together. Now, my guest today is a national expert and sought after speaker and thought leader on urban education. He has been honored for his work with the Chicago Magazine's Chicagoan of the Year Award, Chicago Defender Media's Defender Man of Excellence Award, and the Helen Dumas Excellence in Education Award from the Faith Community of St. Sabina. He has been the principal of Leo High School in Chicago since 2016. In his tenure, he has doubled enrollment, made significant upgrades to the school's curriculum, technology, and more. And most importantly, his students have a 100% graduation and college acceptance rate. He is an alum of Leo himself, a member of its Hall of Fame, and has received the Alumni Association's Man of the Year. He's also a proud husband and father, and I am proud and excited to welcome Shaka Rawls to the Fearless Authenticity Podcast. Shaka, what's up?
Jeanne Sparrow. Oh my God, this is like a dream come true. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. I am so impressed with your work. I have been reading about what you've been doing at Leo for a while, and it is astounding how you've been able to accomplish that in such a short amount of time, and the love the kids show you. We're going to get into all of your activities on social media in just a minute, but I want to start with your story and how you got to this point. You have said before that it never occurred to you when you were a student at Leo that you would end up in this job to lead the young men who were sitting in the same classrooms that you did. So how did you know? And you even just said to me that you believe you're doing what God put you on this earth to do, which to me is what Fearless Authenticity is all about. So how did you know that education, and particularly this job, was the thing for you?
So coming out of college as a history major and a secondary ed major secondarily, I was really I wanted to stay around sports. I was a football player in college and undersized athlete, so I wasn't going pro. I wanted to stay around the game. I wanted to coach. I was a 3-sport athlete here at Leo. And so I wanted to stay around the games, the activities that I love. And I enjoyed engaging in young folks while they were engaging in those experiences. And then I realized that I actually enjoy engaging with young folks inside the classroom space, right? So once I began to develop more of a love for learning, I tried to transfer that love to the young people that I work with. And that's kind of how I got here.
I love that love is part of that. My mother was a teacher, and I come from a family of educators. And I do think that for you to be successful as a teacher, just from what I've seen from the teachers who I loved, who impacted me, and also what I saw in my family, is that there has to be this love of youth. Also, this love of bringing out the best in them. And I think your approach to education and how you describe it, both through your work with Impact, the organization that you founded, but also the way you talk about these young people. One of the things you said that I saw in another article was that your goal was to fine-tune students' strengths and talents, instill a sense of purpose, ensure that they never doubt their worth, which touched me in my heart, but also pulling out what's excellent in them, finding what they need to succeed. And I think that sounds very different than a lot of things we hear in education, especially now, because a lot of times it becomes real prescriptive where we're telling these kids what's wrong with them, not necessarily what's wrong with the things they're doing, but this idea that something is wrong with them as human beings that needs to be fixed. And I feel like you're talking more about expanding on whatever's inside. What is your philosophy? Am I making incorrect assumptions?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you come to that philosophy, and why is that so important to you?
So a couple of things. One is that I trade in the most expensive commerce there is. I trade in love, right? So I am here every day giving 100% to these boys and expecting 100% from them. And if you know anything about teenage boys, they are not going to give you 100% every day, right? So that means that every evening I'm disappointed at the output. I'm disappointed at something that we didn't do. I want my drive to be good and I desire to be my best for these boys every single day. And when I see that I'm not, it hurts. I go home and I cry, right? I don't sleep at night, right? This is expensive. Doing this is an expensive way to educate kids. I am emotionally exhausted every single day. I laugh in this building. I cry. I yell. I smile. I have all the emotions every single day. That's why I love this job. But I come at it knowing two things. One is the 16-year-old boy in me sees the 16-year-old boy in front of me, right? So I'm no different. I am as hood as I am, formerly hood as I am. I know that I came from this area, and I can transcend to this space right here, right? And so I want to give them the same tools that it takes for me to command a room full of former gang members, or I do work at Hill Prison. I can talk to a room full of incarcerated individuals, and also talk to a room full of funders. And so I want to give them the same tools to have that dexterity, that flexibility, and it's saying that who I am is just as important in these spaces as anybody else, right? My me is big enough. And so I want to teach my boys to have that same sense of agency. I always say it's a sense of agency. Don't let life come at you. I want to bring it to life. And so that with that, I need to know that whatever they come in this building with is just as important as what I come in this building with. And whether that's my wife mad at me for not picking up my socks, or me not making enough money, whatever the case may be, I understand that that's important. So now how do I occupy? We always say in here, one of the things that we say is, so what's your next move, right? And so no matter what life gives you or whatever you're dealing with, you're always asking, what's your next move? And so I want to teach the boys that same sense of kind of go get the same hustle that we use on the corner of 63rd and King Drive. We're going to use it at Leo High School, or you're going to use it blah, blah, blah university, or you're going to use it at your new corporate job. You're going to experience the same things consistently. And so I want to teach them that they have the skill set. If you can survive, if you're a young Black and brown boy and can survive in Chicago to 16 years of age, you can be anything. Trust me, right?
That part.
So that's what I want to. Yeah, exactly.
That part. What do the words, when I said, we were introduced by a mutual friend, and when she said the words fearless authenticity to you, and when I did the little introduction at the beginning, what do those words mean to you, especially in terms of how you do your work? What are the first things that pop up to you when you hear fearless and authenticity and together?
So there's a part of me that has to, this is a uniform. I put this on to go to work, right? So there's another layer of me underneath this, right? And it might be a hoodie and some Timbs, and, I might have my hat, cocked down over my eyes, listening to trap music, right? And so fearless authenticity reminds me that I think I have to remind people that there's a person underneath the principal role. There's a person. These are all people in this building. These aren't. I say 16-year-old boys, but they're actually individuals with all of their sets of circumstances that bring them into my space. And so that we have to make sure that even when we're talking about, we did a thing here, conversations with cops and community, right? Where I wanted my young Black and brown boys to talk to police officers, right? Because they're people too. And I think that sometimes understanding that there's a certain level of humanity that exists in people, and we want to bring that out, right? Whenever we're having these interactions, they're authentic human interactions. And so us as educators, or me as a steward, or I always say I'm a shepherd of these boys, I only have one gear in this building. I have to be myself, because boys can smell BS a mile away, right? They know when I'm not giving it to them straight. So I got to be myself. I got to stay consistent, right? This is the way. And I talk them through everything I do, right? They don't like it. And we have a good enough relationship. So they'll call me on my BS, like, why'd you do this? I'm like, so here's what I'm doing, right? I'll break them down. I had A, B, C, and D. This is how much money I had. And they'll be like, oh, okay, we got you there. And so I think that just not being afraid to be who you are, whether that's a former kid from Woodlawn Gardens on the south side of Chicago, or that's, finna be PhD student from the University of Chicago, right? So I hit all them corners, but I represent both of them spaces 100% in any room I walk in.
I love that. And I love that none of your travels through the world have taken that away from you, because I do think, and especially I'm sure you see this in your young people, sometimes we take, as my daddy would say, you get taken off your square. Right? You get taken out of who you really are sometimes, and we take these detours. And I have found that that's how I find my authenticity, is when people kind of take me out of myself. And then I realize, you know what, this isn't true to who Jeanne Sparrow is. This is not who I want to be. And it's not even natural for me. So have there ever been any moments in your life where you have felt that expectations have been the goal you were going for, and you realize you were getting away from who Shaka Rawls really is and really shines in? Because that's where standing in our square is really powerful, is because it's what we're meant to do. Have there been any moments where you've been taken out of that, and then how did you come back to it, and how did you even realize you needed to begin with?
Crazy. See, absolutely. And this job is actually that moment, right? So I was working in Chicago public schools, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Catholic schools in Chicago. They pay, a significant less money than I was making in Chicago public schools. So I had to make a decision for myself and for my family, right? To really leave a lot of money on the table to come and do something that I was really passionate about. And I was working at Leo High School. So I had to make a decision on whether I wanted to drive a foreign or domestic, right? Whether we eating out or we eating soup, right? And so that was this decision I made when I took this job. But I realized that I was walking in the path that I think God chose for me, right? And being in CPS, I probably could have been continued to be very successful there. But I was also, I had those golden handcuffs. I was worried about making money, right? It was about, having a 6-figure income. And when I let that go, and that's not this, I love money. I have a very good relationship with money. I want all the money to come my way. But when you realize that that's not as important as leaving a legacy or developing the next generation of kings, or doing it for, I always say, I'm doing it for the culture. I'm here for my culture, right? That's way more important than me driving, something foreign. So I had to make a decision. And it was literally the best decision of my life. I love this is the most difficult job I've ever had in my life. I do it 24/7, 365, hands down, no problem. But it is also the most rewarding job, not financially rewarding, but the most rewarding job that I've ever had also. Just look at these boys, and to hear a young boy look at you and say, I got you, right? Like that, like, chill. I know what you're asking of me. I appreciate you asking, and I will deliver for you. Like, look, a kid telling you that will make your day, hands down, right? I'm like, don't let me down. They're like, I got you. And they literally mean it. They got me. They're going to hold me down. And I need that, right? And so I didn't have a principal like that when I attended Leo, which is fine, different era. I'm glad I can be that for these boys. Or even when I give them a hard time, right? I'm like, I know you don't like what I'm saying, but you understand what I'm saying to you. And they can look at you and say, I get it, right? I don't like to hear this, but I get it. And that's the way you want them to, and I always say, I want you to learn while we love you, because out there for us, it's a cold world. Life is hard. It's unfair. It's unjust. There's racism. There's bigotry. There's sexism. All those things exist outside of this building. So here's where I'm gonna love you, and I'm gonna make you into the person that I want you to be inside of my space while I'm with you. And then you can go out into the world and spread more love. I think if I'm successful, I'll make more me's, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing too is that love kind of recycles itself, because when they have that foundation of love, no matter what's happening in the streets or at home or on a job or what have you, they always have that they can go back to. Like that's the foundation that is unshakable. And something tells me you are creating young men who are going to be able to withstand those pressures that so many of us have been, no matter who we are, what we look like and where we come from, that we get shook, because I think our world and our culture at large, and I'm not talking about our culture, but I'm talking about, American culture and maybe even global culture, teaches us to value different things that take us out of ourselves, and ironically rob us of the opportunity to be the most successful that we can be. Now, you say that you see yourself in your boys, and that they see you in them. And that, I think, is an interesting place. How do you think, and you reference where you come from and how you've grown up, how has your life experience informed and connected you with how this way you have of showing up for your students? Like I said, I was lurking on your social media, and you bring in your hit, like, we are kids of hip hop, like our generation, even though I'm a little bit ahead of you. Our generation grew up on hip hop. And I think that when we first entered the workspace, at least I know this was true for me, except because of the fact that I was in radio and could express what my love of music was. But in a lot of corporate spaces, that aesthetic was not welcome, and even seen as threatening or what have you. So how does all of the things that make up who Shaka Rawls is, how does that inform how you connect with your students and bring them that energy? And does that energy free them to do the same with you?
Absolutely. So there's a, as cool and young as I think I am, I'm reminded every day that I'm an old man in this building. These kids will remind you every single day that you are old and you are not. We share. I listen to some of their music, very little of it, but some of their music, right? But there's also, so it's two things. One is I'm not going to deny the fact that obviously hip hop has come so far, right? And also it's been co-opted and it's part of the fabric of American society now, right? So if they can use it as a money-making enterprise, so can we, right? So I'm not going to deny the fact that when I get in my car, the music will be loud. I am listening to probably Jay-Z, right? I'm not going to deny that. And there are things, but essentially what is hip hop, right? It's the idea of expressing yourself, this poetic expression, right? With rhythm and music, right? And so it's the same thing that I do inside this building. I see my kids as agents, right? You're driving your own life. You're not gonna, you're in control. Yes, society sucks. So now what? Like, show me what your next move is. You got some hustle in you? I always ask, you got a girlfriend? Did she tell you no anytime? You know what I'm saying? Like, you've heard no before. You've done things to get what you wanted, right? I see your grades and I see you got on $200 gym shoes. So you know how to manipulate some things to get what you want. So use that same flow, your voice matters, right? And so I want them to it's the same thing, your expression, whoever you are, however you express yourself, whether it's through written form, whether it's through academies, right? If I'm writing a paper for the academy, it's going to be very different than if I'm writing a speech for, say, Sabina Academy, right? So I got to make sure that they understand that you can communicate on different levels, but what they must understand is that their voice matters. They have a sense of agency. They are people, right? And so, Meek Mills mentions in his last song, like the opening of the song says, they couldn't see us, so we had to be heard, right? Talking about the uprising, right? And so I'm saying, like, you have a voice. I can hear you. What do you want in this school? So I've been working this last year and really trying to give more leadership to the boys, right? I don't want this to be the Shaka show. I want them to be like, look, this is the way I want my education to look at Leo High School. And I'm like, work with me. I believe you have the same, you've been through the same things that I've been through. I'm just a little bit older. So tell me, based on your lens, what do you think this school should look like? What do you want to see in this building? And so having that ability to be flexible and not coming into this game like I know it all, right? There's no principal school that teach you how to go through a pandemic, right? I'm figuring this out, right? So I'm telling the boys told me when we went out for the pandemic, it was like the most salient day of my life. They said, they can't close Leo. And I was like, right, I want you to think like that because we're special, right? And second of all, they can't close Leo because they actually just did. But then the other one was like, they looked at me and they were just like, so what are we going to do? And for the first time, I was like, I don't know. I said, but we're going to go home like we ain't ever coming back. And we didn't for quite some time. But letting them know that I have a sense of vulnerability, letting them see, I tear up all the time. I mean, I'm not in here crying like a baby, but there are times where I get emotional and I want them to see it. There are times where I'm like, I need a hug. Or I was one morning, I was having just a bad morning because I'm a person. And I think I yelled at everybody in here. I mean, the postal worker, everybody in this building got that smoke that day. And one of the kids singing at the time said, you need a hug. And that's exactly what I needed. He was like, it's going to be okay. Gave me a hug. He was like, you got this, he was like, because if you don't calm down, you're going to kill somebody in this building. But letting them see me be vulnerable, letting them see me be happy and joyous, and letting them see me hurt, and all those things exist. So I want them to know they have a voice. And if I use hip hop or music to express that voice, my voice matters. And I want them to see that we are people, that matter, and we have opinions and we have brains. And so whatever medium you choose, whether it's instruments or rap music, God, it's a school full of boys. So I didn't hear everybody's demo tape in this building, right? Hey, I didn't YouTube all these kids and listen to some of the god awful music. But if that's how you choose to express yourself, or you're an artist, or you want to do graffiti, like, I'm gonna give you the venue to have your voice. So I think that's my job.
But you know what, though, Shaka, I think you were probably still part of the generation where every young man in Chicago was a house music DJ. So, for at least 5 months.
Absolutely.
So, you know what I mean? So yeah. How did I know? How did I know? Okay. But you know what, though? This is okay. So this is interesting to me on a few different levels. First of all, as a Black man, just education aside, there isn't a lot of space for you guys except in intimate relationships, perhaps with families, partners, and that's about it. And if then, and friendships, perhaps. where you are able to be vulnerable, where you are able to be a whole human being and not this archetype of what people think a Black man is. And what this definition of masculinity, how that comes across and things like that. Can you talk to me about how you have seen that change in the time that you've been there? Because I'm sure when you first brought that approach, it may have gotten some resistance, not only from the students, but I'm imagining that in the education world, people have had to have all kinds of reactions to whether or not that was the right approach.
Absolutely. So traditional education is based on pretty much an efficiency model, right? How can we educate the most students in the minimum amount of time, right, to get the most value, right? This is this kind of a postmodern look at education. It should be a value, right? All those ideas. It's not really the way people learn, right? So you have to dismantle that whole structure, right? We think about the normal structure of schools is that the teacher is the purveyor of knowledge, and the student should be getting that knowledge from the teacher, and you're like, you're welcome, right? But if you think about knowledge, that the current knowledge that we have is static. Like, I know what's in history books, right? It's all Googleable, right? But what I don't know is how that history lands on a 16-year-old boy and then what he can do with that knowledge. So that's where we are. So we dismantled the whole structure. That's not to say that I'm not in charge in this mug. I'm definitely in charge. But I work in tandem with these boys, right? When I'm going around doing in classrooms, I'm jumping in trying to figure out what they're going through or how they're talking about it or disagreeing with them. Right. And so if we dismantle that structure of the teacher being a hierarchical type and the student being the kind of passive receiver of knowledge, and we say, hey, let's take this information together and see what new information we can construct using what you know, what you do, and what I've just taught you. Right. And so that's the way we do that. Now, with that, you can also say that what that has to do is say that the student doesn't come in with this idea that he's just a blank slate and I'm giving him information, that he comes in with value. And so this is an inefficient way to learn. This is the hardest way to do it. In Chicago, on the South Side, while you're being shot at, all the destructions, right? So we got to do that in this environment. But I want the boys to know, like, even though it's difficult, it's not impossible. It's just hard. It takes me work. I work every Saturday. I work most Sundays, right? It's 6-7 days a week, like, because I think that we do have a phenomenal product, but it also takes a phenomenal effort to produce that product. And also, the structure of teachers. I mean, no one goes into education to be like, to be heartbroken at the end of the school day, which I often am, or to be incredibly saddened because a 17-year-old boy made a bad decision, right? Or to be heartbroken when you have to put it. That's not why you go into. You go in because I saw Dangerous Minds. I saw Stand and Deliver. It's supposed to be credits at the end of the school day, and none of that happens, right? You got to get up and do it again. So when you love the grind and you love to see what the progress is and the process. Then you understand that it's okay to tell the boys that I love you, right? It's okay to tell the boys that I'm angry with you, but the angry is actually just a primitive emotion. The real emotion is hurt, right? You hurt my feelings. I've had students do things that made me upset, and they'll come back to apologize, and I'll tell them, I'm not ready to receive it right now because I'm a person, like I'm still hurt. And they need to hear that before me say, I'm just yelling at them until they get out the door. But you have to be comfortable enough in yourself to withstand scrutiny from social media, which I get all the time, to withstand students rejecting you wholeheartedly, but also looking at it's 210 kids in this building, and I'm sure only 200 of them really love me like I love them, right? But I'll take that all day, right? I'm tending to a flock. And so you have to be able to be really comfortable in yourself to withstand those type of turmoils. And also your heart's got to be strong enough to endure it.
Wow. It's that last piece. Your heart has to be strong enough to endure it. My brother. That's going to sit with me for a minute.
Thank you.
I want to talk about the challenge that you must face from your peers who are saying that this is not the right way of educating children.
So they always qualify it, and I'm okay with it. The first thing I did when I got in this position is I dismantled the notion that there are other competitor schools out there, right? And I'm one of those. There is no competition, right? Right? And that's the way I wake up every single morning. Like, I'm looking at my only competition is me, right? And so I have to have that kind of fearless, because again, these boys are looking for me to be like, we got this, let's go. So I dismantled the notion that there are competitor schools out there. And so when other schools compare themselves or think about, they always put these qualifiers on it. Well, he's only got 200 students, or he doesn't make any money, because they always put these but that doesn't matter to me, right? This model works for this location, for these boys, right? Congratulations to all the other schools in Chicago most of the schools are a lot larger than mine. There are a few smaller schools, but most of the schools are a lot larger than mine. So I never look for them as points of comparison. And in fact, to be honest with you, if you're educating youth in Chicago, we're on the same squad, right? We're on the same team. And so maybe I can learn something from you. Maybe you can learn something from me, right? But I never come into this game like I know it all. So I have a strong network of principal friends, right? Catholic school and public school. That's my clique, right? Those are my people. But there are people outside that always want to put us as points of like contention, like there's some adversary. I don't do that because I got again 210 Black and brown students. Everyone out there is against us, right? And you see the statistics, right? The dropout rates of Black and brown students in Chicago public schools, or the city at large, or the graduation rates. All the numbers say we're not supposed to be successful. Numerically, that's empirical evidence that says that we're not supposed to be successful. So I got enough people out there hating on me. So nobody else matters to me, because the numbers are already telling me that this normally doesn't work. So I'm like, let's do something different. Let's try to work together. And if we're all successful, then the culture wins, right? Then society wins. And that's what I'm moving for. It's not about Shaka being successful at Leo High School, or even Leo High School being successful. It's about shepherding these youth that's our goal, right? The African proverb that always asks, so how are the children, right? It's not about I should have been a lawyer, and I messed up. So I ended up just being a principal. So now I'm gonna make more lawyers, right? We need more Black and brown teachers. I'm gonna make more Black and brown teachers. So like, it's too late for me, right? And so, and I'm a short guy, so that like every kid in this building is taller than me, right? And so I'm like, I'm not gonna go pro. Like, I can help you go pro, right? So like, it's not about my own personal success. It's about how I help groom success in these young kings that I have in front of me.
And that in and of itself is success. What are some of the biggest disappointments you've had in life? You've mentioned, a couple of things just now that you weren't able to do, or that you felt weren't for you. What are the biggest disappointments, challenges, maybe even outright failures that you've had? What got you through them? And did they kind of help you get a sort of routine or ritual as a bounce back? As you talk about discouragement every day, what's the bounce back game like though?
Yeah, so I think probably one of my biggest probably failures was, when I graduated from high school, I was too scared to think big, and I don't want any student that ever come under my stewardship to ever be in the same space. I want them to think big, and so don't be afraid to dream fearlessly, right? And I think that's the idea, and that's what I'm trying to instill in the boys. I don't ever want them to have that. I had a very narrow view of the world, because no one ever showed me more than what my narrow view of the world was, right? So I went to this school was predominantly African-American. I had 5 white guys that are still my good friends to this day that graduated with me. So all I knew was all Black education on the south side of Chicago. I went to Aurora University for undergrad, and that was all white rural education, right? So it was like so I wanted my boys to have as many experiences as possible, right? So taking them to Africa, or letting them, they're friends on my Instagram, right? I want them to see when I travel on vacation, which I think I deserve. I want them to see, if I go to Aruba, you go on Aruba with me, right? I'm gonna show you the lighthouse and all the things, right? And so I want them to experience, to say, hey, this regular dude without a jump shot, he's only 5'6", doesn't make a lot of money, can have international trips, push a nice whip, have a nice family, and live a nice life, right? So I want them to understand that, everyone doesn't have to have this kind of phenomenal, I don't have to be able to sing. I don't have to be able to rap well. I can rap, but not well. And I don't have a jump shot, right? But I can still be what I would consider to be successful. The other thing is that I've been in grad school probably for the better part of 7 years. And that's been the most humbling experience that I've ever had. The one is just trying to get through the process. And 2 is really learning another language, to be honest with you. They don't, my urban vernacular doesn't fit well with the academy, right? So when I'm writing papers, that was very difficult for me to transition to a different writing style. But I've had a lot of help, and I'm not afraid. I think that's probably the only reason we're successful, is I am not afraid to ask for help.
What was the hardest moment that you had to ask for help for?
I think I wanted to take some kids to Ghana, and I did, and I was successful. I literally begged all my friends for money, like and I got like $20 at a time, asked everyone I know. And that's not something that I normally do. I normally go out and raise money. I try to, I can write pretty well now, or I can go, be on a show or something like that to get some money. But I thought it was really humbling for me to say, I see you all the time, and I just need your help. If you can give me $20, and doing that 200 or 300 times in order to raise the $28,000 that it took for us to go to Ghana, that was humbling for me, because I always feel like I'm the steward, right? I'm supposed to help other people. I'm not supposed to ask for help. And so that's a heavy burden, right? It's like when people call my phone, I'm just like, go, like, what do you need? I'm going to do whatever you ask me to do. Tell me the story, get off the phone, let me go to work, right? And so now when I'm on the other end of that phone, it's like, it's humbling for you to say, I don't have it. Or even with the pandemic, I was like, when I said I didn't know, that was like life-changing for me. And the kids look at me like, you know everything, or at least you pretend like you do. I was like, I know. Normally I'm faking it, but to not know, the pandemic was hard too. I lost 50 pounds just from stress, and not being able to shepherd my boys for a year and a half, almost 2 years, was also another time. And I reached out to my cohort of principal friends. And I mean, to be honest with you, we really leaned on each other during those times, and that helped. And I also have a strong support system at home. My wife and kid are amazing. Samira Rawls, my daughter Samira Rawls, and my wife Rukiya Rawls have been amazing. They let me do all this principal stuff full time on the weekends and stuff. And so I think that having them at home also makes sure that keeps me grounded.
I love that, because, and I think many of us of a certain age grew up at a time where offering help was much more important than receiving it. Because it's one thing, like one of the lessons I had to learn was not just about asking for help, but receiving it. When people offer it and do respond to it. And that's a hard one, because it is humbling, and you do have to humble yourself to get to a place where you realize what the impact is of what it means when you give. Like, that was the gift for me. And the pandemic was one of those moments for me, when my dad got sick prior to the pandemic, and then, accepting even my family's help, but it's made me a better giver. So
yeah. So my mom told me this, and she's from New Orleans as well. So she said, the blessing is to be a blessing, right? And so I've always used that. It's a blessing to be a blessing, right? And so then when you need a little help, when I'm looking for a blessing, I got to be able to say, that's somebody else. Don't take away somebody else's blessing. And I also know it's not about me, right? Like, Shaka, for the most part, is good. I got to think about the 200 boys that may need a few more dollars. Or we just did a college tour, and I needed some help financially. And somebody wrote a really nice check. The Alphas actually wrote a really nice check for me to take the boys. So I'm not afraid to ask on their behalf, but personally, I usually don't. I usually try to, stay away from asking for help. But I know I gotta do better.
Yep. Well, we're going to get you to that doctor status that way, my brother. Listen, because that PhD will get finished. Okay, sir. Okay. Okay. Yes, what is the best advice that you have ever received? One of the things that I love that I saw is Leo's motto, facta non verba, deeds, not words. That was an inspiration to me, because it's like, it struck me as something so core to what actually makes things move forward. But what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That's a good one. I think that probably, I think my mom saying a blessing to be a blessing would be up to the top, because it just reminds me how important it is to be in certain spaces for certain people at certain times, right? And so I think that's probably the one that's most salient to me. But also, I in grad school, this is, I think, one of my professors, actually, Dr. David Stovall is my dissertation advisor, but a guy named Dr. Steve Tozer from University of Illinois at Chicago said to me, be the best possible person for this situation. Like, what he reminded me, right? So, like, I can come in with all of my baggage and be me 100. I could do me all day, right? And so sometimes we don't need you to do you. I need you to be the person that needs to be in this space. And so when I'm walking through this building, even though I want things to look a certain way, I have to remember that each individual person may be going through their own thing. So I need to be who they want me to be. So one person might need me to be strong and stern. The next person might need me to be jovial as I'm chastising them. The other person might need me to hug them. The other person might need a swift kick in the butt, right? So, like, you got to be the best possible person for each individual situation. And I think that all situations are going to, like those shirts, the boys always love those shirts that says, be you, they'll adjust, and sometimes you don't have to be you, right? Like me, I want to be on the beach, right? I don't want that me want to be on the beach. That's not who the school needs every single day. And I was talking to somebody the other day about my social media and things like that, is that I literally had to give up my own personality to be the principal of Leo High School. My social media page is the principal of Leo High School's social media page. And so I can't say any of the things that I used to say. All the jokes, I can't even like some comments anymore. I got to be the principal of Leo High School. And so I think that shows me, like, in that position, in order to make sure that we have the amount of shine that we have, or the spotlight of the work that we're doing is being seen in a positive light, a positive image for young Black and brown kids, is that I need to be a different person on social media.
But you know what's interesting about that to me is that is an expression of your authenticity as well. It's just because one of the things that people, I think, fight with me about when it comes to when I say fearless authenticity, I'm like, well, the same way we don't say certain words to our grandmamas, you know, that we might say to our friends, that's still, our grandmama still knows us. She probably knows that we say the things we say to our friends, but it's out of that respect. And it's a dance. Right.
Absolutely.
And it's an exchange that the person who needs to be the Shaka Rawls, principal Shaka Rawls, is still a very real human being as the husband Shaka or the father Shaka. But there's things you say to your daughter that I'm sure you would never say to your wife or what have you, because it's not necessary, needed, or called for. And I think we forget that dance. And it's interesting to see how you navigate that with each individual student. And you have to practice that every day, because I don't know in other structures if we have to do that the same way. You know, it's like when you're the manager, then you're the manager to everybody, and there's less of a dance. But maybe you're missing some pieces if you don't have to negotiate those with every person you come into contact with. Am I going down on the right road with that one?
100%. So, and my goal when I'm walking through this building is to make every person feel seen, teachers and students. And that means that sometimes that relationship is going to look very different. That's going to be me taking your temperature in a variety of different ways, right? So you have to have those gears with different people. And when you don't have those gears, sometimes you miss out on humanity, right? If we start to not see that this is a person who may have just gone through something. I had a student here, he ordered Uber Eats, and I hate that, right? Don't order Uber Eats to the school. And so I'm acting a fool. We got a great relationship, but I'm acting a fool. And in the middle of this, and he knows me, we have a very good relationship, he breaks down and starts crying. He's having issues at home. It's not about Uber Eats. It's about him having some emotional issues, and I made him more vulnerable, right? And so you have to, and I thought at that right moment, I'm arguing over a hamburger, and this boy household is in turmoil, right? And so that just reminded me, even, my teachers are going through something, right? Or even when sometimes I'm going through something, right? So if we stop negotiating spaces, negotiating those relationships, and just start doing I'm just going to do me, I'm just going to be who I am. No, that's not the way you show love and compassion. And so I want us to be able to show love and compassion and make people feel seen. My goal is that if everyone feels seen, if everyone in this building feels noticed every day, then that's a successful day at Leo High School. That's a successful day in my life. And Jeanne, it's the same in this building. If you find me at a local establishment, tavern, if you find me at a party listening to house music, same dude, right? Same guy. And so those things, but it's just in those spaces, right? I'm going to be playing rap music, and in this space, I'm going to be playing house music. When I come in here, I'm jazz all day, right? And so it just depends on. I got different levels. I'm a complex human being. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours yesterday about how people have these layers of complexity, right? And that doesn't mean that I'm one way all the time. It's that I can understand the complexity of everyone in front of me, and I want them to see mine as well.
I love that, because it also acknowledges those pieces that we don't yet know, because we haven't had access to them for whatever reason. Maybe our relationships haven't gotten to that level, but it is, I think a lot of times when people do something that we don't think is them, and we reject that does not encourage people to be as fearless, to be as authentic, and to be as flexible with it, and showing all those different sides. And it's so beautiful to hear you talking about that and giving that to these young people, especially young Black men who don't get a lot of care from the outside world, who don't see the outside world loving them. They see the outside world consuming them and the products that they put out. All right, I'm going to ask you my last two questions. I always ask everybody on a Fearless Authenticity Pod. What is your proudest achievement so far in life? And what do you still dream of accomplishing?
So I would, when I say proudest achievement, I would probably go to like the hundreds of stories I have of young men who probably defied all the odds and got to college. But I would honestly say my greatest accomplishment at this moment was making another person, right? Me and my wife having a baby, right? And obviously I played a very small role in that. But watching how my daughter is turned into a caring, she's such a caring young lady. She's witty, she's funny, she's charismatic. Like she has all these things. Like I feel like I did that, right? I did that. When I see her, I'm just like, and she's, she's caring. I was not feeling well, and she took care of me. Like to be 13 and take care of her father, right? I did that. I contributed to making a person. I think I do that to the boys to a different degree, but I get them at 14 and they go away at 18. So her is like all that time. And I think that my greatest achievement, you know what? My greatest achievement would be for one of the students that I've taught in any of the locations to come back and be principal of Leo High School and let me go off into the sunset. Like Hove say, make another Hove, right? I love when Jay-Z says that. If you made Hove, make another Hove, right? I think if I'm really good at my job, I'll make another me. If I make the next passionate young Black or brown educator that wants to come back and continue to lead this institution, then I think that will be my greatest accomplishment. I will hand over the keys, pack my few things up, and go on off into the sunset.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right. And then the final question is, when do you feel like you are at your best, most authentic, truest expression of yourself?
When I walk into this building, I shed whatever happened at home or whatever happened in the world. I mean, I walk into a school building every day in the city of Chicago on the South Side, right? There was a school shooting yesterday, right? I mean, can you imagine the baggage, the responsibility, the ownership I have to take over stewarding and shepherding these boys? I walk into this building as an African-American male that come from that. I just got out of my car. Like things happen, right? Carjack, like all of the traumas. I have to shed all of that and be the person that these boys need me to be when I walk into this building every single day. That's who I think my most authentic self is. I can laugh at them as I walk through. I can give them a hard time about being late for school. They can give me a hard time. They love their little short jokes. They love telling little short jokes on the principal. And I take it all day. But having somebody that they feel comfortable enough with to crack a joke with, respectfully, crack a joke with, is a line. And so I think that's my authentic self. I love being in here with these boys, right? I obviously wish I made more money, but I would do this for free. I would probably do this for free. Not every day, but definitely do it for free.
And that's how you know you're doing what you love and you are living in your truth. Shaka Rawls, it has been an honor, my brother. Thank you so much for making some time for me from those boys to talk about what it is you do. I do have one other question that I had. How can we support you and the young men at Leo?
So we always, obviously, all of our tuition is supplemented. So we rely on donations. We rely on me doing a lot of kissing babies and handshaking. So you can always donate at leohighschool.org. If you want to support in terms of your actions. Jeanne Sparrow, I have been a fan of yours forever. If you could one day step foot on this campus.
Absolutely. Like literally. I don't know what you want me to do, but I will come and do it.
Well, I'm going to reach out to you. If you could come and visit, or if there are people out there that want to pour into the boys, and that's what we need. We need more people to pour into the boys. So if you want a mentor, if you want to develop a relationship in order to guide someone into journalism or into TV or into media, anything, that's for you in particular. I just want you to visit. That's for me. I'm fanboying out. I'm telling you. I'm like, sign this. Oh my God, Jeanne. But if you would please visit our little school. Just for me listening to you for so long and just really just being in admiration, not only just for your voice, but for your presence on the radio, right? And especially during the times where I know what it must have meant for you, enduring some of the things that you had to endure, not only just being a woman, but being a woman of color in that space. Like you're a hero to me. And so, yeah, so it's just, to have this opportunity was amazing. But you can always reach out to me on social media, The Real Mr. Rawls on Instagram, or Shaka Rawls on most platforms. And if there's anything you can offer, any support, we love to have it right here at Leo High School.
All right, we're going to drum up some support for you, my brother, and make sure that you keep doing that work and pouring into those young men, and that your way of doing things spreads, because I think all kids need it, especially ours, but all kids need that. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Shaka Rawls, thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed absolutely every minute of it. So here are some things I'm going to take with me from this conversation that I want you to think about. And this first one is so important. And I love the way Shaka puts it. My me is big enough. So many times we think we have to achieve a certain thing or get certified a certain way or have so many achievements to have an impact. But my me is big enough. That has a sense of agency that he is creating in his boys that we can take with us too. Also, this advice that goes with that: don't let life come at you. Bring things to life. And then that question that they ask each other at Leo all the time: what's your next move? This idea that no matter what life gives you, what you're dealing with, that you can always ask what's next, that isn't the end. I love the hope that's embedded in that and the realization of what our worth and value is right now in this moment as we are. And related to that, how Shaka likes to remind people that there is a person underneath this Leo uniform. The idea that he is more than just the role or how he appears to people, that it's an acknowledgement of us as individuals with our own set of circumstances. And that's how you bring people into your space and help them to understand what your perspectives are. And that's how we really get to connect and move forward together. And I love the idea that for him, his greatest achievement, if he's really good at his job, would be to make another person like him, someone who comes back to Leo to make a change. And I think that's that. It's a great satisfaction in looking at how full circle moments can happen. That if we're doing things right, we can inspire somebody to do something, maybe not just like we did, but similar to it, or continuing that work forward. It's like that relay race where every step forward is a step for all of us forward. And then we get people so far, and then they take us the rest of the way, and so on until we all get to the promised land. Oh, child, I'm inspired. Thank you, Shaka, for all you do at Leo for our young people. And I love that you wanted to share with us, and you did share with us as my guest today. I also appreciate you, my Fearless Authenticity listeners, for your attention and your support. I could not and would not do this without you or my amazing production team. Thank you to you as well. I hope you will like, rate, review, download, subscribe, and share this episode wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Please join my community too by following me at JM Sparrow on social. Please drop your comments and questions, thoughts, and suggestions wherever you find me. This has been Fearless Authenticity with Jeanne Sparrow. Thank you, and I'll see you again soon.